Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host, Jim Wilson, Newmark, Caleb Hoppus, Hanlon, and Matthew Shapiro Obermeyer. We have a great lineup of guests for you on our show today. Matthew, will you please give us the rundown?
We're looking forward to today's show. We're starting off with William Toms, the co-founder and chief creative officer of Rec Philly. Then we have Billy Roberts, president of Brown & Brown, Pennsylvania. Following that, we have Andy Sentyz, the president of Delaware River Stevedores. And we're wrapping up today with Adit Gupta, the co-founder and CEO of Lula.
Let's get to know our first guest, William Toms, co-founder and chief creative officer of Rec Philly. What is Rec Philly, William?
So Rec Philly is an ecosystem that we built specifically to empower creative people to do more of what they love to do. We do that with a creative space and a creative agency here in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Have you raised any money to start the business?
I have. So we bootstrapped in the very beginning, but to expand to our new facility and to other cities, we've raised about $5.5 million to date.
Why did they invest? Why would they invest $5.5 million in you?
I believe our investors invested into us because, we have a very new perspective. And with that new perspective, we're bringing...
How young were you when you were coming up with new perspectives?
I've been coming up with new perspectives and solving problems my entire life.
Where you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? And where are you in the pecking order?
I'm originally from the Germantown section of Philadelphia, and then later on moved to Bucks County in Warminster. And I'm the oldest of five.
Oldest of five. Gotcha. 8 to 14. What kind of stuff were you up to 8 to 14?
8 to 14, after school, everything. I was in sports, so tennis, basketball, football, but also chess club and dancing and doing everything I could to express myself.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Yeah, Will, you talk about new perspectives. So you grew up in Germantown, which is an urban area of Philadelphia, and you moved out to Bucks County. That's a whole new perspective. Tell me about why you moved.
Yeah, it was a whole new world. But I moved because, I started in very humble beginnings. My parents had challenging situations as I grew up. My father's been incarcerated for over 20 years, and my mother battled a drug addiction. So after that, my grandmother, who raised me, knew it would be a great decision for me to be able to go to Bucks County and get a better education.
Whose idea was that for you to go out there? Your grandmother's?
Yeah, that was my grandmother's idea.
How did you react when you heard that idea?
It was a bit of a shock. It was removing me from the community and everything that I had known, and placing me in a space that most people didn't look like me. But I was down. I was excited by it because everyone around me respected my grandmother, and I trust her as well.
How did you adjust to that new community? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge in the beginning. Again, being the what felt like the odd person out. No one where I was looked like me. They weren't doing the things that I was doing. But it allowed me to get to a space where I could understand how to get connected to people who had a lot of differences in their backgrounds, and figured out how to be able to connect with people and make people feel safe.
So what does that transition from Germantown out to Bucks County have to do with what you're doing today at Rec Philly?
Yeah, at Rec Philly, I feel like one of my major roles is being a bridge builder. And I learned how to do that in the transition from the city to the suburbs. And I now understand how to bring people together and make, exciting spaces for folks who may never be, connecting outside of those spaces.
Mr. Wilson?
William, you mentioned chess club. When did you first get into chess, and who got you into that?
Yeah, I fell in love with chess as a kid. It was one of the things that my father and one of the few things that we really shared and bonded over early on. And I fell in love with the game because of the strategy involved. It's all about understanding how to make the best move you can with the position that you're in and with the pieces that you have on the board at the time.
So just like when you were talking to Matthew, it sounds like, your life is about making the right moves, right decisions, right? There's a famous chess quote that says, good positions don't win games, good moves do.
Yeah.
What do you bring with you to Philly Rec or Rec Philly, that has to do with making the right decisions?
Yeah, I consider myself the visionary of our company. And it's about understanding the world around me where we are and seeing what's possible in the future and then being able to communicate that to my team. So I think the game of chess and thinking many moves ahead has been helpful because as an entrepreneur, I built a business over 8 years ago at this point and made a big bet on where we'd be today.
Mm-hmm. Caleb?
But Will, what kind of sports did you play when you were growing up?
Basketball, football, and tennis.
And then you did a lot of social activities as well. You had friends groups and different kind of things that you did with them. Tell us about some of those activities.
Yeah, outside of sports, all the creative arts. I grew up writing poetry, almost as a way to understand the world around me, as well as filmmaking and dancing.
So when you were involved with dancing, were you doing that solo, or you had a group that you would get down with?
There was a group of us, the closest friends around me. We would, create that group and go to events. And as soon as we'd walk in, folks would create the circle around us, knowing that the show was coming.
So when you're an athlete, you kind of have a team assigned to you, but a dance group, it seemed like you kind of built the team there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you do? How did you get people involved? It seems like a lot of people that didn't look like you probably weren't doing a lot of the types of dancing you were doing. What did you do to make them feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think at first it was leading by example. Before there was the group, I was dancing, I was doing my thing. And I think folks were gravitated towards, my confidence to express myself. And I think I had a knack for being able to help people feel safe and be able to see the vision of what their best selves could look like. And together we'd be able to kind of go after that.
And now moving on to Rec Philly, what's the revenue model? How do you guys make money out there?
Yeah, so a part of it is we have a membership. So folks are paying, to have access to a yearly membership, kind of like a gym membership, if you will, but for creatives, as well as an agency model.
So it seems like with these creatives, then a big part of it's probably making them feel comfortable when they come into your business, making sure they're going to be able to get their best selves. Is that fair?
Very fair.
What do you do with people coming into the business?
I'm sorry?
What do you do with people coming into the business to make them feel comfortable?
Yeah, I think for me, it's about one, designing the space, as one of the folks who are responsible for architecting and designing our space. It was about being intentional to the needs of our community, knowing exactly what our folks want, because I'm a creative myself, and then being able to design that with that intention. Folks feel it right away when they walk into our space, and it was built for them by folks who had their best interest in mind.
Mm-hmm. What's this? You mentioned the word safety. And I'm trying to figure out what safety have to do with building a business. I thought business was all about blood and guts and bring the revenue in and keep the customer. What do you talk about safety?
Yeah, I know for the folks that I serve who are traditionally young, creative entrepreneurs, I'm talking not physical safety, but more so psychological safety. I think of our space as the space that may be the only space in our members' lives where they're actually applauded and celebrated for their differences and to be able to be their best version of themselves.
Will, if we go back 8 to 14, what was the physical space where you felt safe and creative?
When I was young in that age group, my grandmother actually built a gazebo in our backyard when we first moved to Warminster. And that was the start of it all. That was a space where I could have my wildest ideas and conversations with my friends, and almost created that moment and capsule for us to be our best selves. And that's what we do now at Rec Philly. We build that same gazebo energy for our members.
Tell me how your space recognizes the gazebo. Tell me the physical similarities.
Yeah, I think, in framing it up this way, it's so clear to me that, what I do and my role in my organization now is to pass on the feeling that my grandmother gave to me, which was saying, here, with this space, you literally have access to what you need when you need it, and not many of the distractions that you don't need. And, the confidence of saying, hey, this is your space, do with it what you will.
Is grandmama still around nowadays?
Yeah, she is.
She know what you're doing for a living?
Absolutely. She's very proud.
Why?
I think she's proud mostly because, she's seen, the realities that were in front of us, especially again, when I was coming up. She raised 4 sons, most of which have experienced some level of incarceration or was murdered due to gun violence. So when she's seen what I've been able to create with the opportunity that she gave me, I think that makes her proud for both of our efforts.
You think she understands about how impressive that gazebo has been on your life?
She knows now.
So what's the best part of your job?
The best part of my job is actually a very specific moment. It's when a member comes in and they look me in the face and they say, I did it. And as soon as they say that, I know it's because they meant that they got an opportunity to quit that job they hated, because now they're earning money through their passions and they're going full time as a creative.
Wow. And you're providing a safe space for your members, for your buddies to join you in the gazebo, huh?
That's exactly it. And learn how to get paid to be themselves.
Wow. And this has been one of your many ideas emanating from when you were a kid and you would keep yourself busy with all these after school activities. What's the website address for this organization known as Rec Philly?
The website is recphilly.com, recphilly.com.
recphilly.com. We've been speaking with William Toms, co-founder and chief creative officer of Rec Philly here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away. This is Herb Cohen, your host of Executive Leaders Radio. And if you're a business consultant, if you consult to business owners or to business owners' team members, then we'd like to speak with you because we're getting requests from people all over the country, from entrepreneurs all over the country that are starting and building their businesses where they're looking for help. And maybe we can help connect you. Why don't you email us at consult@executiveleadersradio.com. That's consult@executiveleadersradio.com. And perhaps we can connect you to folks, to entrepreneurs and their team members all around the country that are looking for help. That's consult@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce Billy Roberts, president of Brown & Brown of Pennsylvania. Billy, what is Brown & Brown of Pennsylvania?
Brown & Brown, one of the largest insurance brokers in the world. We handle our risk for our clients from a property and casualty perspective and employee benefits.
Where you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? And where are you in the pecking order?
Grew up in a small town called Keyport, New Jersey in Monmouth County, which is across the bay from New York City. I have a younger sister, so it's myself and her, and I am the oldest.
All righty. 8 to 14. What were you up to 8 to 14 years old? What kind of stuff were you doing?
You know, it's one of those things as a kid, it's all gas, no brakes mentality, just running around, never sitting still, sports, bikes. I mean, never sitting on the couch and playing video games. It's constantly just chasing, you know, whatever that is. At that age, you don't know, but it's just consistently just going.
Mm-hmm. I understand. You mentioned that you had a special relationship with your younger sister. What was going on there?
Growing up, my parents worked really hard. Both of them own their own businesses. They worked 16, 18 hours a day. And from a very young age, I always was there to take care of my sister, whether it be walk her to school, home from school, make sure that she was always okay, just getting her to try to be a better person.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your sister dealt with some addiction or something like that?
Yeah, my sister had a little bit of some hiccups in the road. It's kind of one of the things that inspired me to try to figure out what makes other people tick. And I've never went down that road, but to watch her go down that road, it pains me. So my goal is to try to make her better as a person and give her a life and help her get to a life that she can lead something.
It's interesting you used the word "it pains you." So you have a deep empathy for other people, which I didn't think that presidents and CEOs had empathy. But I'm wondering, has this empathy for other people, the fact that there's things that happen with your sister that pained you, has that helped you build this business called Brown & Brown in Pennsylvania?
It has. I have a fear in life, and the fear of letting other people down. So I'm constantly giving my all, so others are trying to follow my lead.
Matthew, Caleb, could you give me a hand, please?
Yeah, sure. Herb, Billy, it seems like you played a lot of sports growing up. Which one was your favorite?
Favorite sport is basketball.
Were you a pretty good player? Did it come easy to you?
It did after I got cut from a basketball team, heading into freshman year, where that's basically where my life turned around, because I was pointing fingers at everyone. And what it really boiled down to was I thought I was better than I really was. So learned a lesson. And from that day moving forward, I said to myself, I'm never going to lose again. So went on to play basketball in college. So I defied the odds.
So what specifically was the change between your freshman and sophomore years?
I grew up, maturity, looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, hey, this is your fault, or I did this.
When you say you grew up, you mean you grew to be 6'5" and you put on 40 pounds in between those 2 years?
I grew up in between my ears.
So it was a big mental maturation for you in between those 2 years.
Absolutely.
Do you think that has something to do with learning about personal accountability?
Yes, sir.
So what does that have to do with how you interact with your employees, teaching that personal accountability?
Look, I mean, I think the biggest part of being a team is the ability to communicate with other people, and everybody's different. So with that, you have to build a culture around like high achievers, people that just want to get in the weeds and just get shit done, because there's not a lot of doers in the world. So when you find them, you got to take care of them, because those are the folks that are going to take care of your business.
Matthew?
Hey, Billy, you talked about your parents and striving to be better. And at some point you switched schools in your childhood, right? Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yep. Grew up in a very small town, 1 square mile. Grew up with the same people, same family. Some of the kids that I was growing up with were not going down the right track. So my parents decided to send me to a private school that was completely out of my element. With every single person I was going to school with, I knew no one.
So how did you adjust to that? What was that like?
You have to adapt. You have to figure out who you are as a person and try to navigate a maze of dealing with all these different people that have things that you do not have, and figuring out a way to relate to them on a level that everybody becomes the same person, same group of people.
Was there any teacher or other kid in your class or someone who helped you adjust to that, who helped you relate to this whole new world?
Unfortunately, I mean, there wasn't. It was me. I mean, I was in a world where, like I said, there's people that they weren't like me. We were all different. So it just forced me to adapt and expand who I was as a person, to be a chameleon and be able to communicate with people I'd never had the opportunity of communicating with.
So I'm curious, you had this experience of being out of your element, of being an outsider and having to kind of adjust on your own. What does that have to do with running a business?
I mean, running a business is about adaptability. And as your business gets bigger, you'll realize that mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people. So if everyone doesn't buy into the same high standard, you don't have team chemistry. So it's kind of fits right into life as well.
Jim?
Billy, you said when you were younger, you were fishing and crabbing in the bay nearby. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I always wanted something out there that was better. So like I said, my parents were hard workers. We didn't have a lot. So if I wanted, I had to get it. And one of the ways to get it was to figure out a way at a very young age, what can I do to help other people and myself get the things that I want? And that the bay was there, the water was there, there's fish and crabs, and there was people that want it, there was a demand for it. So we figured out a way to sell it to the docks and to the local fish market.
So you came up with that idea on your own. So it sounds like you're pretty entrepreneurial and a self-starter when you were younger. What lessons did you learn from fishing and crabbing with your buddies that you take to Brown and Brown, Pennsylvania?
It's very simple. You wake up in the morning with a purpose. You go do what you're set out to do, and you execute and just get it done.
Mm-hmm. Caleb?
Billy, we've heard you mention a few times throughout the interview, as a leader, you seem like being a good person is important to you. Listen, we hear CEOs and leaders say that all the time. I get the sense that it's really genuine with you, though. So what does it take to be a good person?
I think it's just living by your word. I mean, your word is your bond. And my dad at a young age taught me a lesson, and his quote still to this day follows me. It's what you do speak so loudly, I can't even hear what you're saying.
Wow.
That's a good line. Another sense I'm getting is it's really black and white with you. Things are pretty clear. In the green room, you mentioned kind of a slogan at Brown and Brown, GSD. We'll clean it up for radio, and we'll just say, get things done. Can you tell us a little bit about getting things done at Brown and Brown?
Yep. It's just execution. Everybody getting in the boat and rowing in the same direction. Everybody has a role, and it's very simple. If everybody does their job, we're going to win.
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, Billy, you mentioned in the green room also that you have 4 kids, and by extension through your sister, almost like a fifth child. Tell us what's so important about them and being a father.
Just again, living my life for them. I do what I do for them. I want them to have nice things and things that I never had the experience to have, and that's what makes me tick and keeps me moving. And I look at our team as the same way. I work for them.
So you mentioned that I got the sense that nothing's ever good enough, where you always want to keep striving and keep building. And you want to provide for other people stuff that you didn't have. Is that fancy cars and fancy houses, or what is that you're talking about?
With hard work, that will come. It's work waking up with a purpose and giving your all and not being satisfied with being average. I mean, the world is average. Who the hell wants to be average? I think that everybody can always wake up and take it to another level. It's what is that level? Everybody has that, but they have to find that within. I have to try to get that out of people.
So you're in the employee benefits and other insurance related industry. Do you ever hang out with any of your clients? Do you ever get to know any of your clients?
I mean, absolutely. I when I first started, prior to being a leader, I still have the same clients that I took on 15 years ago. And, we kick ideas around in business and we feed each other's minds up about what's working, what's not working, how do we innovate. So I'm constantly surrounding myself with people that think like me. And when we're talking, it's kind of like the light goes off with one another.
So you're all about relationships. I mean, you're all about crabbing and fishing with your buddies and figuring out how you guys can go do stuff together. It just happens to be making money, whether it's with your teammates, whether it's with your clients. You're all about relationships. Well, what's the website of this organization known as Brown & Brown of Pennsylvania?
bbinsurance.com.
Let me have that one more time.
bbinsurance.com.
We've been speaking with Billy Roberts, president of Brown & Brown of Pennsylvania, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Back in a moment, right after this quick break. Don't go away. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce Andy Sentyz, president of Delaware River Stevedores. Andy, what's Delaware River Stevedores? What are you guys doing?
So we unload ships that come up and down the Delaware River, house cargo, and work with our business partners on to bring ships into the port.
Where you're from originally, how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
Yeah, so I grew up until I was 10 in Philadelphia, and then moved to a rural part of Pennsylvania. I am the oldest of three children.
All right, 8 to 14. What kind of stuff were you up to? What were you doing?
In the city, a lot of baseball, playing basketball upstate, fishing, hunting, riding dirt bikes, still baseball.
Mm-hmm. When you moved to a rural Pennsylvania from a row house, I believe, in South Philadelphia, how many kids did you have to play with, and what was your role amongst the kids when you moved?
Yeah, rural Pennsylvania, you live far apart, so there were only a handful of us, 3 or 4 close friends, and we did a lot of outdoor activities, anything you could do outside, whether it be baseball, football, and then in a rural area, there's a lot of fishing and hunting that goes on, riding quads and dirt bikes.
And what was your role with the other 3 or 4 kids, the other 2 or 3 or 4 kids? What was your role amongst the group?
As a high energy kid, I was usually the ones initiating those activities and trying to get things moving along. I wasn't comfortable just sitting around.
What's that have to do with your role as president of Delaware River Stevedores?
Well, you're the one that's got to kind of initiate it on all fronts and keep things moving forward and people motivated. And that's directly related.
James?
Yeah, Andy, tell us about a little bit more about baseball. What position did you play?
I was primarily a catcher when I played baseball.
So what's the role of a catcher? What kind of role did you play on the team there?
Well, you're managing the team. I mean, all the other players on the field, keeping them motivated, letting them know where they're at on the field and moving everybody forward.
So, they say a lot of, catchers make good managers. There's a lot of managers in baseball that were former catchers. It makes sense being involved in kind of every decision, knowing when to take timeouts. What do you bring with you from your catching days to how you run the Stevedores?
Well, there are ups and downs in all games, and keeping people motivated, that there's constantly the possibility of a win is the primary focus, I think, as a catcher and as a business leader.
Interesting.
So Andy, if I got this right, when you're 10 years old, up to 10, you were living in a row house in South Philly, right?
That's right.
And at 10, you moved to upstate rural Pennsylvania, right?
That's right.
Okay. So was there like a big family meeting where you decided that this was the move you were going to make and you had your input on it?
Not at all. Not at all. It was not much opinion. I didn't have much of an opinion when I was 10. It was more or less this is what we're doing, and get on board.
So how did you feel when your parents told you were moving from South Philly to upstate Pennsylvania?
Scared would be the first feeling that I had. All of the unknown, leaving all my friends behind, new school, new community, everything that goes along with it.
So now tell me, when you get to upstate Pennsylvania and you're scared and you're uncertain, you don't know what's going on, what did you do? How'd you handle it?
I got comfortable being uncomfortable, and learning to adapt and assimilate to a different type of community and culture and how people there view things as opposed to in the city.
That's a fascinating phrase you just used. You got comfortable being uncomfortable. Tell me a little bit more what that means.
Yeah, well, trying to adapt in a new situation is uncomfortable from a city for someone who grew up in the city to move into a rural area. And it was constant moments like that where it would be not just school, but sports and church, getting to know different people and how they viewed the world as opposed to how I did.
So what does that transition in from city to country and learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable, what does that have to do with being president of the Delaware River Stevedores?
Well, you have to learn to understand various different types of people and how to communicate with them on and find how to find common ground on issues you might not necessarily agree on.
Mm-hmm. Caleb?
Andy, how young were you when you first started making money?
I was 12 years old. I had a farm job.
What were you doing on the farm?
I worked on a dairy farm, so I would show up before school and then after school and help milk cows.
Was there a whole group of you?
No, there was only three of us. There was the farm owner, he had one hand, and then me.
So a lot of work to be done. And now you rose all the way to the president of the Delaware River Stevedores. Remind listeners again, what is a stevedore?
So we unload and load the commercial ships that are bringing cargo and taking cargo to and from the U.S. to other areas of the world.
It's like working on a farm, except next to a waterway.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah. Yes.
So help the listeners relate to what you learned growing up on the farm, working early, working late. How does that relate to being a stevedore and more so managing the stevedores?
Well, it taught me at a very early age that there's no replacement for hard work. A farm is 365, 24/7, and you don't have any days off. And if you want to get somewhere in life, that's the same type of work ethic that you have to bring to it.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Andy, you told us in the green room you have two kids. I'm curious, what did you learn from your kids that you bring to work with you every day?
They teach me to be humble, I guess. You know, the other part I enjoy about being a father is just to set good examples, to show them that working hard is meaningful and that you could do anything you want to if you put your mind to it.
Oh, those were both fascinating things you just said. Tell me more about being humble and the importance of that.
Well, I mean, as you gain some success in life, I think it's important to recognize that, you know, family is important. All of your relationships that you have, even as you grow, remain important.
And you know, you talk about growing and keeping those relationships important. I think you told us you married your high school sweetheart, right?
That's right. That's right.
Tell me how your wife supports you in your job.
Well, there are many times where I had thought about giving up along the way, and it's been a long road. And she's been my constant supporter and telling me I could when I thought that I couldn't, and drove me on a lot of initiatives where I didn't think they were actually possible.
So do I understand that one of the reasons you may be enjoying success as the president of Delaware River Stevedores is because of your wife?
I would absolutely say that she's been an integral part of me growing as a human being and pursuing my goals.
That's interesting. So at home, who's the boss? I mean, is your wife the boss? Are you the boss? How's that work out at home?
Well, I like to say happy wife, happy life. So we coordinate on decision making.
How's that? And how's that concept of happy wife, happy life fit into your role as the president of Delaware River Stevedores?
Well, I think that anyone who's working for any business, that you have to gain some type of satisfaction or be pleased with what you're doing. Otherwise, it's going to be short-lived. And I think that that same concept applies. So
as opposed to you being a dictator, it doesn't sound like that's the way you operate at home or at the office. It sounds to me like you're more collaborative. I mean, it sounds to me like, it's hanging out with those neighbors when you were a kid. It's getting everybody engaged all the time. It's not being the boss. Rather, it's helping set a direction and encouraging others it's gaining commitment as opposed to demanding compliance. Am I seeing that correctly?
Yeah, I think you have to get everybody behind a vision. You set high goals or you have a vision, and then getting people on is not necessarily something that you dictate to them. It's something that you want to have them on board willingly. And to do that, you have to be persuasive and encourage them. And that's how we get things done here.
And flexible and adaptable, it sounds like, as well. It sounds to me like, you're really just a big kid. Well, I guess you've learned some stuff along the way, and your wife certainly has helped. So this organization, Delaware River Stevedores, what's the website address for this organization?
It's d-r-s.com.
Let me have that again. What's the website address for Delaware River Stevedores?
d-r-s.com.
We've been speaking with Andy Sentyz, president of Delaware River Stevedores, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment, right after this quick break. Don't run away. This is Herb Cohen, your host at executiveleadersradio.com. Regarding your career, if you're trying to figure out how to make the most money and also enjoy your career, enjoy your career, really enjoy your career and make the most money, you ought to talk to our CEOs. They've got the bird's eye view of where the really profitable jobs are, where the really profitable jobs are going to be. And they're willing to speak with you regarding their vision for the future and where you may fit into it in order to make the most money and really enjoy your career. Email us, consult@executiveleadersradio.com. That's consult@executiveleadersradio.com to get help from our CEOs regarding where you may want to go in your career to make the most money and really enjoy your career. Consult@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. I'd like to introduce a gentleman by the name of Adit Gupta, co-founder and CEO of Lula. Adit, what is Lula? What are you guys doing?
Hey, Herb. Lula is a delivery service. We like to joke around. We're the only delivery service that doesn't deliver. We build software for brick and mortar stores like convenience stores to be able to deliver on every platform online, Grubhub, Uber, DoorDash, etc., all from one place.
And where you're from originally, how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
I am from Voorhees, New Jersey, oldest of one. I'm the only child.
Mm-hmm. And 8 to 14, what kind of stuff were you up to? What were you doing as a kid?
8 to 14 was an interesting time. I was traveling around, visiting grandparents, living in India, starting a tennis business. Went to high school early, enrolled at 11. So crazy time in my life.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Yeah, Adit, I listened to you say that. So you skipped a couple years of high school, a couple years of school, you just said, right?
Yes.
And you lived with grandparents, and I think you said in the green room you lived with your aunt for a while too?
Yeah, I was fortunate to be able to travel to almost every state in India in a year and a half, 2 years, living with my grandparents and aunt, which was really a awesome experience.
But as awesome as that sounds, it's a little bit non-traditional, right? Like you recognize, I think, that you grew up in a somewhat different way than most people.
I think so. I've always not realized that until recently, but I would agree with that.
So tell me, what was it like experiencing that, and how does that impact who you are today?
At the time, I didn't know that was a different kind of path. I thought everyone did that. But when I was traveling so much, I was just sort of taking it in. And how that has had an impact for me today is I've had more of an appreciation for people, appreciation for differences across people around different countries, different languages, and that's really built more empathy as someone now that started a business.
And was that kind of, I don't want to ask too much about your parents yet, but do you think they did that deliberately?
I'm not sure. They tell me they did, but I'm not too sure, but I am really glad that it's had such a big effect on my life.
And how does your happiness at that effect on your life? Tell me, how does that play out in what you're doing today at Lula?
Yeah. So at Lula today, we're empowering thousands of amazing entrepreneurs, these business owners that own convenience stores, liquor stores. They're the backbone of American economy. Having traveled around the country in India and here in the US over the last decade, it's helped me meet a lot of people and understand from their shoes, their perspectives. And now getting to build for them is just a really amazing opportunity.
Caleb?
So, Adit, I want to fill the audience in right away about some stuff that's going on with Lula. It seems like it's on a meteoric rise. I mean, you said you raised $7 million already. I think you're in 5,000 stores. So I want to hear a little bit more about your upbringing. What did mom and dad do for a living?
Yeah, so we went through 2 rounds of funding. We're in about 500 stores, but growing really quickly towards that bigger number, hopefully soon here. Mom and dad went to Drexel, so go Dragons. I also graduated from Drexel grad school, and my mom's a school teacher.
Are they originally from the States?
No, they immigrated to the U.S. in the 90s and from Delhi, India.
So they had full-time jobs when they came over here. Are they business owners themselves?
Growing up, a lot of folks don't know that their parents are entrepreneurs when they have stores, these jobs, they're starting things. But they started a convenience store when I was just in high school, didn't realize that they're starters or entrepreneurs until now, where I'm starting something of my own.
So were they working full time in the business, or it seems like it was kind of more of an investment business, the convenience store?
It was a side sort of thing. It was they had full time jobs as engineering and teaching jobs, and so this was the side business. And
did you work in the business?
I did. After classes and on weekends, I would often go. I would help them restock. Go to BJ's, Sam's Club, buy big pallets of things to restock the store, and got to learn a lot about the industry and business from doing that.
So you were an employee in this investment business. So I guess there's probably some responsibility to your parents to make sure you don't screw things up on the job. Now with Lula, you're out raising all this money for your company. So I'm wondering, when you're in those meetings with those investors, when you're the co-founder, I'm sure you're talking to these people one-on-one. Are you able to get across that responsibility you have of being in charge of other people's money?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And we're lucky to have some incredible investors here from Philadelphia, like Ben Franklin Tech Partners and some angels that have made a big impact in Philly. I think first and foremost, everyone believes in this problem that we're solving. COVID has helped identify the need for SMB stores and other stores to need to innovate and really come to the 21st century. And, there's this thing, founder market fit, which is unique here. I've experienced this as a prior human that's been a customer for the product that we're building. And that's really the kind of big reason why so many people have trusted us with their capital. We were the customer when I worked in my parents' convenience store. And now we have the blessing and opportunity to be able to build for those folks.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
You told us tennis has been a big part of your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How young you were when you started playing?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to admit, I started to lose a little bit of weight here, but it slowly became my favorite thing to do. Started playing tennis early days in high school, and I was first the worst person on the team, number 36 out of 36 people, almost got cut, but really loved the challenge of being able to rise up in the ranks from number 36 to number 1 in my high school, top 100 in the country for my age group. And that helped me realize that, whatever hardship or challenge, you just have to put in your 10,000 hours and work through it and never give up. And so that really had a big effect on me as an entrepreneur. But starting to teach tennis, which happened completely by accident, also became a big part of who I am. I started teaching tennis also in high school and realized that what I put into it has a direct output of what comes out of it, from the people that I go to start taking lessons, to the random things I would do to bring awareness for that there is a new instructor in town that they can start taking lessons from, would bring more clients to me. And at such a young age, understanding all of these things like marketing and word of mouth had been very powerful for my growth.
How would you have characterized your style of play when you were a tennis player?
That's a great question. It's certainly shifted over the years. I started playing quite aggressively in early days with frustrations of high school. I would use tennis as an outlet to hit the ball as fast as I could to dominate the court. And over time, as I matured a little bit more and built a more well-balanced play, nowadays I play more strategically. I think out points before hitting the ball, and that's been the biggest difference in me as an entrepreneur and also a tennis player.
How is that balance in your risk-taking decisions now? How does that carry over to Lula?
Not every decision is fast as fast as you can. Some things you have to be offensive, some things you have to be defensive. But the thing that correlates the most from tennis is, two things. Everything is pre-planned. You can, based on pre-planned preparation, affect the output of what's going to happen in the game. But second, there's curveballs. There's sometimes things happen where you just lose a point or two or a game or even a set, but there's always an opportunity to come back and win later on. And that's kind of what keeps us going as entrepreneurs and here at Lula.
Best part of your job?
It's part of my job. Sometimes team members have a good day. Sometimes they have a great day, sometimes not a good day. And the goal is to keep morale really high, to keep everyone really pumped, because we are solving a tremendously exciting problem.
So you're really turned on by this opportunity. How high is up?
What do you mean by that?
How big guys can you guys go?
Pretty big. So, over the next year, we're hoping to be in almost every convenience store in the country. Mm-hmm. We're already in about 30 states and growing pretty rapidly here.
What's the website address for this organization known as Lula?
LulaDelivery.com.
We've been speaking with Adit Gupta, co-founder and CEO of Lula, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Could you give us a rundown of who we've had the opportunity of speaking with, Matthew?
Sure can. It's been a great morning, Herb. We started off with William Toms, the co-founder and chief creative officer of Rec Philly. After that, we had Billy Roberts, president of Brown & Brown, Pennsylvania. We followed that with Andy Sentyz, the president of Delaware River Stevedores. And just now, we wrapped up with Adit Gupta, the co-founder and CEO of Lula.
I'd like to thank my co-hosts, Jim Wilson, Newmark, Caleb Hoppus, Hanlon, and Matthew Shapiro, Obermeyer, for giving me a hand structuring the questions, hopefully providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today and have a nice day. Bye-bye.